Welcome back to Kimmel and Cox, your source for all things entertainment. I'm Keith Cox. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend Dylan Kimmel.
Hey, how's it hanging, everybody?
Well, today we're going to be talking about a different kind of Hitman story. Not sure what it is about us, but we love a good Hitman movie.
Yeah, it's a good Hitman movie and everything like that. Eventually, we'll get to John Wick, but it's not this one.
No, not this time around. But but we are, of course, talking about In Bruges. Which was released on February 29th, 2008. It stars Colin Farrell as Ray. He is part of a pair of hitmen, the other one being Brendan Gleeson as Ken. And these guys have been sent to Bruges, which is in Belgium.
Yeah, they don't really know why they're there at first. Yeah.
No, they've been given this assignment. They've been given a target by their, I guess you call him a handler. I don't really know what you would call the person.
What is the terminology? Yeah,
like you put a
contract
out on somebody, but basically the person that hires them to kill people. Yeah. Which is. His name is Harry, played by the inimitable Ralph Fiennes, who is fantastic in this movie. Mm-hmm. So anyway,
otherwise known as Voldemort for all you Harry Potter fans.
Yes. Definitely some Harry Potter connections in this movie.
Oh yeah, Brendan Gleeson.
Yes, Brendan Gleeson. Yeah. But so those are really your three central characters in the film. And then there's also a couple of other noteworthy characters. There is Chloe, who is played by, and I'm probably going to butcher her name because she has accents over her name, so I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but I'm going to guess it's Clemence Posey. But she plays a love interest for Colin Farrell's character Ray in the movie.
Yeah.
And then you also have the character of Jimmy, who is played by Jordan Prentice, and Jimmy is a dwarf who is filming a movie in Bruges. Mm-hmm. And that's how Colin Farrell meets, or how Ray meets Chloe. And there's a lot of entertaining, we'll talk about it more later, but a lot of entertaining scenes that come out of that. But his character does play an instrumental part in the film as well.
Colin Farrell's character really is like the rudest character in this.
Really is. And the film was written and directed by Martin McDonagh. And I noticed actually that there is a movie that's out now. It's a new movie. I think you can stream it on HBO Max.
That he just recently released. With Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson in there again.
Can't think of the name of it now, but it's set in like 1923 about the Irish Civil War. And
what is the name? It's a clever name, like the Banshees of.
So I'll have to look it up. But
Inisherin, and it's an I word.
Yeah,
it's an I word.
I think it's Inisherin. Yeah. So Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson and Martin McDonagh are collaborating again for that movie. So
this is actually the third time that him and Colin Farrell have worked together, because there's another movie called Seven Psychopaths.
Oh right, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have not actually seen that, but based on watching In Bruges, I'm going to have to check this new movie out, because just the humor and the way that they incorporated all of that into this film, and there's a lot of really tense and awkward moments, but they somehow infuse humor into it, and it distracts from the reality of what's really going on. That's one of the things that I enjoyed about the movie. But it from the beginning, it's really good, because these guys have been sent to Bruges, and Ken, he loves the fact that they're there.
Yeah, he really loves it. And then you have Ray, who's like
He's just this is a shithole. It's like, why would anybody come to Bruges? And
if I grew up on a farm and were retarded, Bruges might impress me, but I didn't, so it doesn't.
He his just his delivery. It's very like rapid fire.
Mm-hmm.
His wit and sometimes because of their heavy accents, it's almost difficult to understand because they're speaking so quickly. But yeah, I thought that Ray is hilarious in this, and his just he's very he's very skeptical. He has kind of a pessimistic view of
mm-hmm.
things, and just very hard to please. And Ken, he wants to go around and he wants to sightsee. He's interested in all the medieval buildings and the canals and everything there in Bruges. And Ray is just like, this is not doing it for me. It's like, why are we even here?
This is ridiculous.
Excuse me.
Yeah, and that's one thing. If you get easily offended, might not want to watch this movie.
No.
Because this is, like, the lead character, especially the one Colin plays, is very rude, and he's not...
not politically correct.
Yeah, not politically correct. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of not politically correct jokes in this.
There's definitely some racism that pops up in there, joking about, because he jokes about midgets and things like that, and there's a whole conversation about that. It's like, well, they prefer to be called dwarfs, and he's like, see, that's what I'm talking about. He's like if I had to walk around like that, worrying about people calling me a midget and making fun of me and laughing at me, he said I would want to blow my head off. And so he has this whole thing about how there's like a statistic for how little people or
he gets
dwarves
excited over the fact that they're filming. He's like, oh, they're filming midgets, and he jumps off the railing and everything. I was like, there's moments in here where I'm sure there's people that would cringe at some points too, because it's like the way the character is he has a whimsical about him as well, even though he's like pessimistic. He's like
it's almost childlike. He almost has this childlike sense of wonder and discovering things, and he gets excited about the simplest of things.
That is like a child not knowing what to, what's correct to say or anything
filter.
like that. Yeah, no filter. Because kids don't know that this might be offensive or that might be offensive.
True. It is true. So Ray and Ken, they've been sent to Bruges, and they're basically, when they arrive there, they're waiting on a call from Harry to tell them why they're supposed to be there. And so the first part of the movie, they spend a lot of their time just kind of waiting around for Harry to call. And then he ends up, they go out, sightseeing one night. He actually calls while they're gone, and he gets upset because nobody's there to take the call.
Yeah. And
so then when he does finally call, Ray is out wandering around, and Ken is left there, in the room.
Oh yeah,
and
That's an interesting bit of like, I was really watching this one video, like actually taking it apart about the writing in that particular scene, because in that particular scene you have, it could have been just a boom boom boom. This is why you're here, but instead you have this innate, there's it really speaks to the craftsmanship, the background, if you will, of Martin McDonagh being a theater director. And I don't know if, like we spoke about this before, is that theater, if you work in theater, it really translates no matter if you're an actor or a director. Because there's certain things with the theater aspect of everything that comes into kind of amplifies the experience of the film, and that goes in hand with the writing as well, because Martin McDonagh was a playwright, and the craftsmanship of this dialogue in that particular scene, where where he's kind of like playing it out like oh yeah, he's here and everything like that. Well, send him out on an errand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really funny too, where he's like, because Ken lies and tells him that Ray is there, and then he's like, what's he doing? He's like, well, he's in the bathroom. He's like, well, is he taking a pee or a poo? And then he's like,
what difference does that make?
Yeah, and he's like, well, send him out, and so he has to go through this whole business of like pretending like he's talking to Ray, and then closing the door, and then he comes back to the phone. He's like, okay, he's gone, and then he's
and it was pointless.
Yeah, it was pointless, and then Harry's like, are you sure he's gone? He's like, he said he could be standing in the hallway. He's like, go check. So then he has to go back to the door, and it's just that whole little exchange over the phone was kind of ridiculous, but
and it comes into like a full like the craftsmanship of just the particular scene where he's like, it's like a fairy tale, right? Like he's talking about how Bruges is like a fairy tale, and he's going over this whole spiel just to keep the boss from getting angry and everything, and those words end up meaning something differently. He's no longer by the end of that sentence, because he realizes that he's sent there with Ray to kill Ray.
Yep.
And he's not coming it's not coming up, and he's like, are you dense?
Well, but I don't think that was the initial goal of them, because their target was a priest. That's who they were supposed to.
Oh, well, that was before. That was before they went to Bruges.
Yeah, and so, oh, that's right. Yeah, it was. I forgot about that. Yeah, that did take place before they actually, because that was a flashback. So that basically, what happened was, the last target that they had, was this priest,
wrong.
and it went horribly wrong, because Ray shows up to the church to kill this priest, and he pretends like he's confessing, and he ends up, there's this like great little bit where the priest is like, who did you kill, my son? And he's like, you, Father. And then the priest is like, what are you talking about? And then Ray takes out his gun and shoots him through the confessional, and then the priest, of course, stumbles out into the sanctuary, and unbeknownst to Ray, there's a little boy that's there inside the church kneeling, and the priest blocks Ray's view of the boy, and so when Ray goes to shoot the priest in the back, and the priest falls down, we realize that the bullet has gone through the priest and into the little boy, and just shoots him in the head, and of course the boy dies. And then now he's had to, throughout most of the movie, he's having to deal with the trauma of that, and
killing an innocent little boy,
right? And he's contemplating suicide and all of that, and so that's what that was the whole point of them being sent to Bruges, was Harry has asked Ken to kill Ray, because he's more or less like, even though they're hired killers, it's like he still has some sense of morals or whatever. He's like, well, you can't kill a kid, whether it's accidental or otherwise. He said it's like, once you've done that, you can't come back from that. And he he even says, he said, if I had been in that position, I would have offed myself right then and there.
And it's very well crafted, the story is, and I love the sense of humor in there. The sense of humor is not there to make fun of the seriousness, like in some other dark comedies. Like the humor is within that, But in this, it's not. It's
more to break the tension. I think.
It's more so like a palate cleanser, if you will, because the subject matter is so serious and everything. It does not make light of it. And there's some funny bits with Colin Farrell in there. I showed you that clip of the two obese, three obese.
When Ken takes Ray sightseeing, and they come to the church with the the big bell tower.
Yeah.
And, he wants Ray to go up to the bell tower with him, and Ray has no interest or whatever. He's like, what? So why would I want to go up there? So I can see, everything down here. He's like, I can see that here, like,
yeah.
And so
that's a very,
it's a good point, but of course you're seeing it obviously from a different view because you're looking down over everything. You can see
just
the rooftops.
imagine someone saying that about the Eiffel Tower. It's like,
so I can see everything.
I can see everything from right here. I don't need to go up there.
So he's sitting on a bench down there while Ken is up in the bell tower, and these three American tourists who are extremely large, would kind of put them in the obese category.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking around. They walk right up to him and like stand in front of his bench, and they're looking up at the.
Have you been up to the bell tower?
Yeah, and he's like, what he said? No, it's rubbish. And
rubbish. The guidebook says it's a must see.
And then he says something about the stairs, the spiral staircase. It's like very narrow.
It's very narrow.
You're not gonna want to go up there. And they're like, why not? And he tells them about the narrow staircase and everything.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah. It's like, what am I trying to say? He's like, you're fucking elephants.
Why you?
Yeah. And then he starts, and then the biggest guy in the group starts chasing him around. Of course, he can't catch him, because he's very heavy and there's a lot of it's like it's offensive. It's offensive.
The interesting thing, I don't know if you caught this, but the interesting thing is that comes into play a little later. Like the bell tower gets closed off, right? Did you remember?
Yeah.
Well, it gets closed off because they said that someone went up there and got a heart attack.
Right, yeah.
It was the obese guy.
There was that was the foreshadowing there, and there's a lot of that in this movie. Like, when Ken is up in the bell tower, he's looking down on Ray, and just he's kind of being goofing. He points his finger like he's using a gun and going like he can basically like a sniper, like he can pick him off from right there.
Yeah, he's just playing around, but later on it's like
it does
crap.
Yeah, it does. Like it all comes full circle there. But yeah, it was really really interesting to me to see that the internal torture and and anguish that Ray has been going through, and obviously Ken, because they're friends, he has a deep affection for him, and he doesn't want to have to kill him, but he's got orders, and and later on in the film, he does go to, he has intentions of carrying out the deed,
but then he sees Ray's about to,
and then he stops him. He stops Ray from killing himself, and then he talks to him about it and more or less encourages him and says, you can leave all of this behind. You can leave this life behind. Go somewhere else. Far away.
Save the next boy.
A new life. Save the next boy that comes along. And obviously, when Harry finds out about this, he's extremely upset. Yeah. So he, books a flight.
He's got anger issues.
He books a flight to Bruges, and he's like, "I'm going to go clean this mess up. I'm going to go do the job you were supposed to do." And but yeah, he is. He's like very angry, and there's a history between him and Ken. They, I guess, have a friendship, going back, many years.
There's actually a deleted scene here that actually says this. So they hint at it too. Now, Ken was married to an African American woman,
right?
And she was killed. So what happened is that he goes to Harry, and Harry goes to the guy that killed his wife and kills him. Mm-hmm. So that's like where their bond is, yeah. And they do reference it early in the movie with the midget. I'm politically incorrect just now.
Little person, sorry. Dwarf, whatever you're preferred.
I got hooked on the movie, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But he's talking about how there's going to be this war between... He's high on cocaine.
Right.
There's going to be this war between whites and blacks.
And then they start talking about, all the different...
he's like, I'm Colin Farrell's Ray. He's like, well, I know which side I'm going to pick on. I'm going to choose the blacks.
Yeah.
If they got the Vietnamese and everything,
and then and then they start getting into other races, like, well, who would the Asians side with? And, and it's like,
everyone chooses the black side, and the whites are just by the whites.
It's basically like everybody else against the whites, and then so that whole scene is it's very it's full of very racist themes or whatever, and then that's when we learn that Ken was married to an African American woman who was killed by a white man. So he's like, where am I supposed to fit in on that? What side am I supposed to be on? Because I am white, but I was, married to an African American woman. So, but there's lots of commentary like that. Again, that's like, it's uncomfortable. But
the movie is not black and white. It's gray.
Yeah,
like it's filled with gray areas. Like, all these people are despicable people, but there is morals to them as well, which is actually very evident in reality too. Because I'd hate to say this, but like, for me and you, we're not black and white. We're gray. We have gray material in because everyone has. No one's black and white.
Yeah, I mean the scripts that you've written, the characters are full of that.
I think they're pretty much despicable people too.
Yeah, it's not they're like I said, there are lots of shades of gray in there. There's not it's not concrete. They're not necessarily one way or another way. They even the characters that are despicable have redeeming qualities about them. So it's like there's a little mixture of everything in there.
Like speaking of like the big bad played by Ralph Fiennes, Harry, he has morals about him too. Like, one, no kids. Two, he loves his wife and children. He actually apologizes to his wife, which is something he doesn't do to anyone else.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry I called you an inanimate object."
Yeah. Yeah, that exchange between him and Ken was really humorous too. When Ken is explaining why he chose not to kill Ray and saying, he's still young, he's got a future, he can change, he's got the capacity to turn this around. And
I have the capacity to change, yes, into a bigger cunt.
Right. And he said, I like how he was like, he's like, so let me. What did he say?
Let me get this straight. This gets better by the minute.
No, instead of saying, let me see if I've got this right. He says, let me see if I've got this wrong. Like he does that little play on words.
Yeah.
But then the big climax of the film is that Harry is going to go after Ray himself, and Ken obviously tries to stop him, and that whole probably like the last 15 to 20 minutes of the film are the most intense. When Ken and Harry are fighting it out in the bell tower, and then Ken gets shot, but still manages to crawl his way up the steps back up to the top of the bell tower, and
just to warn him, and
he tries to warn Ray, and that was a shocking scene. For me, it's like I thought, okay, what is he going to do? Because when he gets up there, he realizes that the whole area is covered in this really thick fog, so he can't see. He can't see him,
and he
down
can't
there.
fire his gun because it's so far high up, no one's going to hear it.
Right. And so it's like, trying to figure out what he's going to do. So he takes some change out of his pocket and starts, throwing it down onto the street below.
Yeah, kind of getting everyone to be like, what is this?
And everybody's like looking around or whatever, but he still doesn't get Ray's attention. So in like the ultimate sacrifice, he actually, jumps off of out of the bell tower and falls to his death. And that was gruesome. I mean, it was just the way that I'm like, oh my gosh, I was watching it with my brother because he was in town visiting from Florida, and so we watched it, last night, before we did this podcast, and when that moment happened, even he was like, ooh, like it was just unexpected. It was just like he just kind of splatted on the pavement, and just almost exploded on content, like his arm came off, and I'm like, man, that's really like, but it, it sends the message, that it was effective that way, and then he gives Ray his gun, tells him to take his gun, and how he even managed to lift his head and speak, for those few seconds after that, I don't know, but it's a movie, so you have to like suspend your disbelief a little bit.
The saddest part is like he's like, no, hold on, and Ken's like, he's like, I think I'm gonna die now, and he just drifts away.
And I really thought that Ray was gonna die, because
it's very ambiguous at the end. He might have.
They did. That was one of the things that my brother said was like, really? He's like, that's where they're going to leave it. He's like, we don't know what happened to him. Did he live or die?
Yeah.
Because he does. He gets shot.
I do notice that is actually a trademark of Martin McDonagh, is that he will leave it ambiguous. Like, are they? Yeah. Which honestly, I guess I like movies like that because it leaves it open to the audience. Like we've talked about in the last episode, Christopher Nolan, he does it ambiguous too.
Yeah. So, the fates of the characters are left ambiguous, and it is really effective, I think, that way, because it leaves it open to interpretation. But
imagine all those shows that you've watched if they just ended on that season 1.
Yeah. But
nerve-wracking, I'm sure, but it would make you go like, well, what's going to happen next? Come on, give it to me,
Yeah, but there's a great, as I said, everything in this movie kind of comes full circle in the end, because there's all these references earlier in the movie that come back later. So, like Ray almost gets away from Harry. He jumps out the window of the hotel into one of the boats that's traveling down the canal, and
Harry's got good aim, though.
And Harry's got he's like an expert marksman. He comes out onto the balcony, and of course Ray has dropped his gun into the canal, so he has no way to defend himself.
He's like, it's too far.
But he's thinking, no way. He's like, no way, it's too far away, and he just shoots him like right in the dead center, of his chest, and he's like, he's stumbling through the streets, and then he comes up on the, Jimmy, the dwarf, who's been there, that's the whole reason he's been in Bruges is filming a movie. So he comes up on the film set.
He's dressed in like a schoolboy uniform,
right? And so it was such a fitting sort of end, because Jimmy rushes out to Ray when he sees him stumbling and bleeding, and then you have Harry is behind Ray and goes to shoot him in the back, to make sure he's dead, and then in a much similar fashion to what happened to Ray with the little boy, Jimmy ends up getting shot. And very that's a very gruesome scene too, because Harry is using these special bullets. They're like hollow point,
and they actually like explode on impact.
Yeah, and so literally blows Jimmy's head off. So you can't tell, he's a little person.
Yeah, you can't tell that he's a little person.
Yeah. So he thinks he's killed a little boy, and it's like, okay,
gotta stand by your principles. And he's
right,
like,
and he puts a gun, to his head and kills himself. So he does stand by his principles on that, even though it wasn't actually a kid. He didn't know that. So it was sort of poetic justice in a way that would end up happening, because he...
The interesting thing is that Ray tries to correct him too.
He did try to warn him. He's like, he didn't finish his sentence, but it was like he was going to say he wasn't actually, he wasn't, really, he was a man. He wasn't really a boy. But before he can say anything, then Harry offs himself. So yeah, I thought it was a fitting ending to the story, considering
Yeah.
that, like, it was sort of like, in a way, Harry kind of got what was coming to him, because he wasn't, he wasn't giving Ray any grace at all on that.
Yeah.
Even knowing that it was an accident, he wasn't willing to bend on that. He wasn't willing to give him another chance. So, in the end, he ends up kind of getting, what was coming to him there.
I got to ask you, because we did bring this up a couple of episodes, and I think we kind of fallen away from it, but I find it a very interesting topic. So, as for, if we were involved in production of this, what role would you have picked? Which role would you have wanted?
I don't know. I think...
And what would you have done with that role?
Yeah.
Differently, or...
I think Ray definitely would have been... I think that would have been a fun role to play. Certainly very different.
And I know you could do that. You could actually do that. I know you could.
I think I could. I think I could bring the. I think I could bring that emotional torture, to the role over like what he had done.
I don't know. I actually did get to play Ray.
Oh, did you?
Back at BCTC, they did a little clip from that where he's about to assassinate the priest or whatever. I played that role. The funniest thing is that I was told afterwards, I was like, someone told me that I was playing it like, what's his name? I'm seeing his face, but I can't think of the name. He was in My Cousin Vinny.
Ralph Macchio?
No.
Joe Pesci?
Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
Yes. Apparently I played it like Joe Pesci because when he says, "What are you, deaf?" Yeah. Apparently it sounded like Joe Pesci to everyone. And so.
It's like, what are you, deaf? Like, come on, what are you, deaf?
Yeah. So I did get to play Ray, but back to what you were saying, like, what would you bring to the table that maybe Colin didn't?
I don't know that I would have infused it with as much humor as he did. I don't know. But I also I kind of like the Harry character too. I think that would have been an interesting role to play, just because it's so different than anything that I've done before. Just the idea of kind of playing a heavy or a morally ambiguous person, because I don't really have that look about me. I just have a typical sort of average guy. I think people kind of have a sense of like they can tell that I'm a nice person, and just my demeanor and everything. So I think getting to play a character that is
because you actually haven't played that kind of character yet. You haven't really played a character that is like.
Not really. I mean, I did get to play a serial killer, but I was wearing a mask the whole time. So and I didn't speak. I didn't speak. So that was different. That was a very just sort of like you feel like you're just sort of this faceless, emotionless person, but to be able to act that out and to put emotion into it, and to realize, okay, this person he's a hired killer, but he's still a human being. He still has feelings. He still struggles with what he does for a living. It's like, who wouldn't, unless you're just an absolute monster, who wouldn't wrestle with that, like it's I've always wondered, like, how does somebody get into that line of work, as aside from the fact that I'm sure it pays very, very well. It's like, what kind of deal do you have to make with yourself to justify that and say, that I can do this for a living and be okay with it. It's very different than like serving in the military, where you're expected to you're expected to defend your country. You're expected to, kill people, the enemy, in order to, for the sake of of freedom and things like that. But it's still, again, you're still basically you're killing somebody under orders. You're following orders, but you still would have to deal with the emotional consequences of that.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting thing, because that's entirely what this movie's about. It's about self. It's about just watching it, there is like it's about really serious things, suicide, depression. Could you face yourself like that? You are your own worst enemy. Right. So, and it is kind of funny because they do struggle with that in the movie. I love the line where he's like, where Ken's talking to Ray, and he's like, "Yeah, I have to make terms that I've been, that I have killed people, and that's just something I have to deal with." And he's like, "There was one that I was very sad about killing." Trying to relate to, it doesn't work because he ends up saying, "What? You said he was a lollipop man." He's like, well, he was defending his brother. Like, well, he came at you with a bottle. To me, that's you're a dead man after that. And he's like, well, if you had learned karate, or technically speaking, your hands are a deadly weapon too. You know karate or something. You say you're a lollipop man. What's a lollipop man doing? No freaking karate.
Well, then there's that altercation at the restaurant too,
where the bottle comes into. Like even the jokes come full circle.
Mm-hmm. Like because
a lollipop.
Ray and Chloe are on a date at this restaurant, and she's smoking and blowing the smoke towards the table next to them, and then she gets up to excuse herself to go to the restroom. And there's the couple next to them there, and the guy makes this offhand comment like unbelievable, and then of course Ray can't resist, so he looks over at him, he's like, what's unbelievable? And then he starts talking about how Chloe was blowing smoke in their faces, and he's like, it's the smoking section. And he's like, I know it's the smoking section, but we still don't want smoke in our faces, while we're trying to eat. And so they get into this big argument, and then
it's actually them that actually get them. He actually, when he's on the train, it's them that actually is like pointing him out and is like, that's the guy that hit me.
Right. And so they he hits Ray hits the guy, and then the guy's girlfriend gets up and goes to swing a bottle at Ray, and he ducks it and punches her. And again, it's that kind of thing might offend some people, because it's like, oh my gosh, he just hit a woman, and he explains it later to Chloe. He said, I don't hit women. I would never hit a woman. He said, but she was coming at me with a bottle. It's like self-defense. He's like, I'm not going to let somebody strike me like that. And so there again, that's that moral gray area.
It's so funny because
what's acceptable and what's not.
It's so funny because I wrote something similar in Intent to Kill. I don't know if you remember, but Jackson he actually hits a woman. And then she's like, someone's like so offended, like, and he's like, oh, pipe down. I do the same to a man too. And
but it's it's like you can sort of see his point, in that. But it's like, again, it's like what is really the right thing to do.
Yeah, and what's acceptable? Because I overall, I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed Martin McDonagh's movies because they're all very, very intuitive, very human stories. And as we were saying, like, if I were to have written and directed this, one, I do have a theater. Well, I guess I do have a little bit of a theater background. I mean, we did do.
You did do it. Yeah, we did a play together, but
and I did do some work behind the scenes as well on others. But I've never actually written a play. I've not directed a play. I've not done any of that sort of stuff. So I don't know if I would have brought the same sensibility to this movie because you can tell that there's a theater background with the director.
Especially with the dialogue
Mm-hmm.
and that
Yeah.
rapid fire back and forth, exchanges. So
Yeah.
because theater is very big, theater is very broad, in the
And
reaction.
you have to be pretty good at dialogue as well for you to have the. And I love dialogue. I actually, I don't know. My scripts do tend to be kind of dialogue heavy, don't they?
Yeah, and that I think that's very much a theater thing as well, because you have these these long monologues and big chunks of dialogue and soliloquies and things like that. So yeah, I can see that a little bit in some of your scripts, but
overall, I really enjoyed this movie. How would you rate it yourself? Would it be on a rewatch list, maybe?
Yeah, I would definitely watch it again. I would probably say, I don't know, I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, I probably would.
I'd say for me it is about a 7.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, it's 7. It's better than average. It's not it's not like epic level, like like one of the, when you think about like the greatest movies of all time, but it's definitely rewatchable. So
it's definitely like after that when he does Seven Psychopaths, and then there's the movie 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and then I think it's the what was the Banshees of Inisherin. I've not seen that one. It's on. I bought it. I haven't watched it yet though. But I have to say I really enjoyed almost. I can't say almost. I enjoyed all of his movies so far. And he does tend to work with Colin Farrell a lot, Brendan Gleeson a lot, Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson and Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson are both in the 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, and 7 Psychopaths. So apparently he has a very good collaboration with all of those actors, and it shows, because honestly, not only that, but you've managed to make movies with these guys, and these guys are like the best, one of the best actors. I mean, hats off to you. You've made a living out of making like some of the greatest films.
But yeah, it's definitely worth watching. So we would highly recommend checking that out. I know you can stream it on Amazon Prime. If you have a subscription to Stars, you can watch it for free with Stars. But otherwise, you can either rent it or purchase it through Amazon Prime. But definitely go and check that out if you have a chance. But I think that's a good place to wrap up today's episode. Before we go, as always, just want to remind everybody to subscribe, like, and share to our YouTube channel. Just join in on the conversation with us. We want to know what you think of the episodes, what you think of the podcast.
If you like the podcast well enough, be sure to check out our Patreon page and help support it and make it even better.
Yes, that will go a long way towards making this the best podcast that it can possibly be. Every dollar that you contribute will go towards things like production costs and equipment and just making it an overall better looking podcast. And we want to just have something that's very professional looking, and certainly your contribution can help us out with things like that, and will just allow us to be able to do extra things in the future. We might be able to provide some one-of-a-kind merchandise or something like that, and so there's just a lot of things that we could use that money for, because it's while it may appear to be, it's not cheap to be able to do something like this. There are always costs involved, and there's going to be more costs involved if we start taking it to another level. So So definitely go check out that Patreon page. Take a look at some of the perks that we're offering there, and you can also see exclusive content on there.
Yeah, we got bloopers, clips that we've shortened some of the videos down with, I mean, we've got some good stuff on there. You ought to check it out. And also, what are we doing next episode?
Yes. Next episode, we will be discussing the film The Hunt for the Wilder People, which is another one that I have not seen before. So that's going to be a new one for me. So
not a Hitman, not a Hitman.
Getting away from the Hitman.
We've done two Hitmans, so I think we're going to take a break from the Hitman for a bit.
And then as we get closer to wrapping up this season,
goodness, we're almost there.
We're getting there.
The season's almost up, guys.
But we've definitely got some great stuff coming in the last few episodes of the season. So
I'm
stuff we're really looking forward to. But yeah, we certainly hope you will join us next week. And until then, as always, be good to yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
You dipstick.